for the first time I think anyone's ever heard of him or on camera,
Yeah.
the infamous Randy Walker. Welcome to the show. Why don't you start by telling me when you got into trading, how you got into trading, and where you're at with trading right now.
So I started I started trading in 2019. Got interested from, I think my boss at my old job was trading a little bit, and I saw him making some money, so decided to look into it. And then I met you in 2019, and you mentioned that you were getting an office together of guys just to bounce ideas off each other and stuff. And then I traded that whole year. Wasn't profitable, obviously. I mean, most people aren't. And then 2020 was my first profitable year, which was pretty fun. I mean, it was profitable for a lot of people, but that was nice. And then now this year has been significantly better than last. So yeah, it's kind of where I'm at now.
And you just recently crossed $1 million in profits.
Yes.
With basically no education, no video lessons,
Yeah.
one little DVD, a little bit of trading tickers.
I watched Trading Tickers, and I think that was it. Other than that, just watching the market and
sitting behind
and
me and watching.
Yeah.
Asking questions every now and then.
Yeah.
And so who are you as a trader? What is your edge?
My edge is, well, as far as
There's 47.
as far as patterns, I like OTCs, multi-day breakouts like IWS. My edge specifically, though, I'd say is probably my size. I like to size into plays that I really like significantly, and I sometimes don't really care how much I'm risking, which is a double-edged sword, obviously. I've taken some pretty big losses because of it, but it works out sometimes, and it pays off.
And psychologically, why do you think you were able to start sizing up so quickly? Because I remember you had a really good panic dip buy and CYDY in 2020, or maybe 2020, where you made like 9 or 10K. Was it just like once you realized you could do it, you didn't want to not do it?
Yeah, that just like fueled everything. Like because I think up till then my best trade was maybe $1,000, and it was a very slow trade. And then I think the CYDY panic, I made maybe 7 or 8,000 on it, and that was the first time I'd really sized into something. And I was like, okay, if I can just do this on other good plays, like I can make a lot of money. And so that fueled everything.
And you being so new, like you weren't profitable till 2020, so that's under 2 years of like really, this being your career. Do you think that you sizing up so quickly has set you back in terms of your big losses, you kind of being a gunslinger and kind of having mixed results in terms of like you are a good trader, but you have a lot of emotional difficulty setting you back?
Yeah, in certain ways it has, and in other ways it hasn't. Like because my big loss on, I think it was on ANVS, I was shorting, which is something I'm thinking about just stopping altogether. It was tough at the time, but at the same time I think I needed it because it made me realize the plays that I actually need to size into. I think that's the most important thing with sizing is that that I've learned is that if I can size into the right plays, it doesn't matter necessarily how much I'm risking because it's going to be worth it.
There's just not enough A+ setups to throw $10,000 risk at day in and day out.
No, not at all.
I think you have difficulty pulling back. Like you've said to me a few times in the last week, I think I need to size down. But you never have.
And then I don't.
And all right, so let's do some like stock therapy on it. So like me and Heidi talk about this all the time, like why you are so successful and so unafraid. Like right now you have double my size now US, and I have a ton of size. Is it so you live at home still?
Yeah.
You don't spend money. You bought your car in cash, a used car. I mean, your biggest expense is your $200 a month country club.
Yeah.
Do you think that all plays into the fact that you just aren't afraid to lose money? Because a lot of beginners are afraid, like very afraid to risk more than like $100. And, your biggest trades are losers.
Yeah.
Up to this point right now. And obviously you've learned a lot from that. And going forward, we have a lot to work on in terms of your emotions. But do you think that all is rooted in the fact that like the money's not that important to you? This is more of a game.
Yeah, it's like so like growing up, we really didn't have a ton of money, so it wasn't. Yeah, I mean maybe that's part of it. And then coming into this, it's like it's new to me, so just having that money, it doesn't really matter as much to me. So it's easier to throw it away on good setups,
Mm-hmm.
and it pays off sometimes. But I guess yeah, you have to get into a different mental state of like just actually looking at the chart
Mm-hmm.
and just focusing on that, and then which can be hard sometimes when you can see your P&L right in front of your face. But
Yeah,
um,
for sure.
yeah, I mean, just trusting the chart is probably the biggest thing for me.
You know, when we talk about that all the time, like people, they're always so like someone downstairs right now. He has his P&L right in his face, and I tell him, we're holding for 2 days, or I think this can run multiple days, and they're out because they have other obligations, they have families, they have kids, they have mortgages, they're worried about all the stuff that you aren't worried about, and
Yeah,
it's hard for them to focus on the process because until you do it and see that like a trade like you're having right now with LUS where you don't think about the money. You have your risk and you build into your risk management, but once that's in place, you let the trade work and you end up making way more money than you could ever imagine by sticking to the process versus worrying about your P&L, wondering if it goes to 60, how much am I up? If it goes to 70, how much am I up? And you know those numbers, like you can
yeah,
do the math, but that's not what's dictating your trade.
yeah.
And why do you think that stuff doesn't dictate your trades on your big losers? Where do you think your losers? Obviously, your losers for me, they've always come from when I go outside of my niche.
Oh yeah,
Outside, I
definitely.
mean, like shorting car this week was like my second biggest loss ever, and it was like the most random thing that happened. And most of these trades do start with some random
Yeah,
stab. So you want to
something that somebody
explain
brings
like,
up in chat is just like, oh hey, look at this ticker, and I'm like, oh, why don't I just lose a lot of money on this for no reason? It's just when you go outside of your comfort zone, I usually make bad decisions.
mm-hmm,
So like shorting, my biggest loss was shorting at day one, which is for me not a good idea. Um, and I was shown that very quickly.
and what we always talk about is that you're walking your dog and it's just a normal casual walk down the street and all of a sudden your dog turns into a fire breathing dragon, and that's how
Yeah,
these trades start. They start off as a puppy, and it's not that bad. I have 100 shares, or I'm only risking 2,000, like worst case scenario, and then all of a sudden you're in situations where
then you're down 10
you're
grand.
down six figures a
Yeah.
day later because so how does that decision making progress? Like we talked about it earlier on a lesson we did on car, like how it's what you do once you get yourself in a shitty situation, that what you do there, like if you survive or not, and it's like the decision to double down, to hold another day. And why do you think you've struggled with those decisions? Do you think it's lack of experience? Do you think it's hard for you to stop
I think
because you want to beat the ticker?
it's
Is it?
stubbornness. Like because I want to be right.
Yeah.
So usually, yeah, it's usually trades that are outside of my comfort zone. I don't have a plan. I don't have a good plan going into it. And then once I see a very bad number, it's easy to lose that emotional connection to say like, okay, screw it, doesn't matter
And
anymore.
we talked about that yesterday when I was talking about car. I said, if I'm up 10 grand on the day, I don't want to lose 1,000. Like I want to hold on to every single dollar because that would make me upset. But when I'm down 30,000, it's very easy to go, what is another 5,000?
Exactly. Yeah.
If what's one more go at it, you
Yeah.
know? But in reality, you're rarely ever going to get that money back that day or in that play.
Oh, yeah.
It almost always gets worse. And in your experience, you've had some that really have ballooned and just turned into fire breathing dragons.
Yup.
And so, like, you just recently had one of your biggest trades ever, but it was also on a day where you.
I was down. Yeah, I started the day down 50K, and it was not fun. But
And do you want to stop fighting these stocks? Like, where you don't have to be down 50K to make 100K?
yeah, yeah, definitely
And do you know how you're going to go about that?
not positive yet.
I think you have your biggest issue really is fighting stocks. Like, it's hard. I mean, I think you did it the other day where you started off, you did make a trade for like an hour and a half.
Oh
And
yeah,
we were all
yeah.
so proud of you because you had a zero in the P&L column, which is so rare for you. And then you went back to the market, and I don't know what ticker it was, but then we wanted to go get lunch, and then all of a sudden you can't leave for 4 hours
Oh, yeah, it was
because you're
Tesla.
sitting there fighting.
Yeah.
And like, I'm trying to figure out I understand like the root of it. Like this is just a game to you, and you want to beat all the levels. But I think when you realize that some levels are just, you just bypass them. You don't have to beat them.
Yeah.
And saving that money is just more worth it. Like, you don't need to day trade yourself out of every situation.
Yeah. I need to be able to just walk away red and realize that it's okay.
It is okay. Yeah.
Because sometimes you're just not going to.
Well, you're proving it right now in IOUS on a stock that still hasn't broken out yet. You're up basically almost your biggest trade ever.
Yeah.
And same with like TJ we talked to earlier, like putting yourself in these positions once a month, once every 2 weeks.
Oh,
you're so far ahead than having to try to rack up 20, 30, 40K days and do that consistently. That's very difficult to do with, the stocks we've been given recently. But it's not hard to to stick to your niche. Stick to, like, last week, if I just bought the Tesla breakout, did what I wanted to do with it, and then have ILUS now, I'd have way more money than, trying to randomly stab at car. And then all those first green days yesterday, I'm just buying because they technically fit first green days. And then I'm fighting with them. And what I've realized is I'm not a good day trader. I don't do it well. And I think everyone at the core knows what they're good at. And it's the discipline and the patience to stick to that and wait for it. Because I think your best patterns, right? So why do you want to stray? Are you still at that stage where trading is addicting and you want to be in trades all the time? Or is it you just want more money?
I think it's probably because I can see other people doing it and I think, why can't I?
Mm-hmm.
But I just need to accept the fact that I can't. So
it's ego. And I think when we talk about a lot, it's healthy competition amongst traders is a good thing. To see Huddy, is doing well, I want to be better. And it pushes me to do better. But I think when it gets to the point of where it's costing you, I think you need to realize, and there's nothing wrong with going out of your comfort zone to learn, to track stats for a month.
But I go full risk and that's not.
And that's it. A lot of people, when they branch out to learn new strategies, they might start with $100 risk, even as a successful trader, because they want to get info, they want to track it, they want to realize, the feel for it. It's basically like paper trading with money, so you get the emotion still. And you basically go, oh, we're shorting Tesla? I don't know how to do that, but let's throw 10K risk at it, because if it works, at least I'll make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I feel because you have that lack of traditional education and you're kind of just what's the word when you pick it up on the streets or something?
A MacGyver?
I don't know what the word is. No, but I mean, so you haven't seen a ton of experienced traders blow up. You haven't seen what it looks like and what it feels like. And what was I saying? Something? Oh, I forgot. Okay, moving on past that, I guess. So you're almost 2 years into your journey. You primarily trade what? OTC breakouts. Yeah. You like first red day shorts.
I just have a hard time waiting for them.
Yeah. Which is simple. And I think I've told you this every time you've had a big drawdown period where I've gotten a text or something that you've lost a lot of money. What do I tell you? I say, I need you to write out a list of all the things you're doing well, all the things you suck at, and stop doing the things you suck at.
Yeah.
And it really is that easy sometimes, because every time you've gone through a big drawdown period, you've come out of it stronger each time. But it's just one day you revisit those patterns, those mistakes you've been making. I guess we can go through that. How hard is it as a beginner, pretty much with a huge account, to come back after negative $180,000 a day? How do you do that?
Have a good mentor that gives good advice. Because you told me, I texted you that day, and you said, basically just forget about the money. It's not yours anymore. Because it would be very easy to just come back the next day and try to chase it and be like, I want that money back right now. But I had to just let go of it, basically, and forget about it, which is hard to just lose that money and think, oh, it doesn't matter. Which, I mean, it obviously matters, but you have to remember why it happened, but kind of forget that it did.
You pretty much have to learn, you have to accept that it's a lesson, that this is something you want to do for the next 20, 30, 40 years, that remind yourself, I didn't blow up. This day is over. The money's gone. What am I going to learn from it? What can I take from it? How do I make sure this never happens again? And it's so hard to do in the moment. I just went through a period a couple of weeks ago where I lost for 14 days in a row. And you feel like you're never going to make money again. You feel like you'll never get that money back. And, you feel a lot of emotions, especially in the beginning when you're by yourself and you don't have a lot of people to talk to about this stuff. And that's the point of these type of services and getting trading accountability buddies, getting mentors, talking to people who have more experience than you because they can kind of help you walk through. I remember the first time Jack, when we lived in Michigan, he lived in Michigan with me. You know, he was blowing up in the process of blowing up on HEAR on a short, and he's messaging Gritani in the Tim Challenge chat because he's like, "What do I do?" And Gritani, having had the experience of like a 180 or 300K loss, I don't remember what it was, could give him advice. And you know, basically the type of advice I give to Randy here, like, you know, there's like steps you have to take, but what you have to realize is nothing is going to change today. It's probably not going to change tomorrow. It probably won't change in a week. Like, time heals all wounds. Like, I know, did you ever take a break after any of those big losses?
No.
Never, even a couple days? They all probably happen on Fridays, but...
Yeah, I think, yeah, they did happen on Friday, which I remember you saying it's a good thing this is a Friday because you can take the weekend to just clear your mind.
But even though the money's gone, by Monday, a part of you is already back to that addiction that's like, I just want to trade. I want to do well. Like,
yeah, I mean, part of me, I tried to take it as a positive, which I think I remember telling you this, like, this is probably a good thing that it happened because that's something that could have blown up my entire account. But the fact that it didn't meant I could keep on trading, and I just had to. I think I needed to learn that lesson, and the only way for me to learn that was to take a loss like that.
And what steps are you employing right now that are preventing that from ever happening again? Do you have max risks on days? Do you? Because it seems like you won't lose 6 figures in a trade anymore.
Yeah.
But you will fight your way $5,000 at a time down to a 6-figure loss if you don't get it right. You know.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna close out my my broker that I used to short because I have an issue with shorting and it's not profitable for me right now. So I think that's probably one step. I should probably set a max stop because I fight. Just a lot. I fight a lot.
I think that's your biggest weakness right now is your biggest days come from you being down the most. And it's almost like you get stronger with every hit you take. Like a great boxer or something, it's like you get more and more amped that you're taking on more like risk. And it's like, why can't you start the day at 0?
I know.
And make 100K?
Yeah, I have to start down like 20K and then fight my way back up.
I think for you, the biggest thing would be focus on entries. Like, this is something I struggle with. It's like, you guys probably think that we don't have FOMO and we don't, like, I remember DWAC was your big trade last week. It's like, and Mark and Fun were running with it, and it's like they obviously were first green days. We were prepared for them, but we're in so early. We're not letting them set up because we're fear of missing this huge potential trade. Yeah. When in reality, they always set up and give you a potential to get in. And if you can be patient for that, I think patience probably is your biggest thing. Where if you can hold off 10 more minutes, you're going to save yourself 30 grand.
Literally.
Before, you know, you're right. And I think it's focusing on, I think you need to have stricter criteria before you're allowed to enter, because I feel like when I had that really good Tesla trade, this is why we talk about, we all trade the same type of stuff. We all do it differently. I had that great Tesla trade last week breakout. We bought it at the same time, you managed to screw it up.
Panicked out of
it's all execution because you got too big from a bad average and couldn't use the wide risk level that I was using. Yeah. Right? So that is
and I was already red on the day, so I didn't want to make it worse.
Yeah, and so that's all the criteria. That all is like prep before the trade happens, stuff like that. Where if you can, I think that's another big issue. You have to be okay with small size. Like, just because you have 1.5 million doesn't mean I'm going to add until you get it, until I get to that size. Yeah. Like, I realized my whole plan from this on ILUS has been, I want sub 40 average. What is it? It says right here in my notes, sub 40 entry for big picture breakout through 50. And that was probably 5 or 6 days ago I had that on there. Yeah. And I need to stick to that plan. Have you added today at all?
No.
Okay, so you're at least sticking to that plan. But I think you need to have better plans and
I do
more criteria for your entry. Yeah.
Because that's what I'm most comfortable with. That was the first pattern that I learned. Which, yeah.
And you make the most money for the most part. I mean.
Yeah, a lot of my biggest trades come from OTC breakouts.
We've been up a lot unrealized on these. Sometimes we throw it away, but God, that is gorgeous. All right, does anyone have any questions for Randy? Because we're going to bring in John Dombrowski here in a second, and then we'll kind of have them both sitting right here in the corner, and we'll just kind of go over it because they're far different traders. Right now, Randy is like he's not afraid of anything. Like, he has big kahunas. Like, he has no problem that ILUS every penny is $15,000. But he's worked at that point and he's comfortable doing that, and he can still stick to his plan while having that risk. And that's super awesome, important. I think the cool thing about Randy is, he came from such a different background than most people. Like, he just met me and was like, oh, I guess I could learn that. And he just sat behind me and studied what I did. How did he figure out how to be profitable so quickly? It wasn't so quickly. How long did you trade
that
for?
Quickly. I mean, probably like it was 10 months.
Yeah, 10 months. And that's how long it took me to get profitable on my own. So I'm better than you. But how did he figure out? Was he directly coached? Yes, he was definitely more directly coached. He wasn't watching video lessons every night. He wasn't watching DVDs because he was getting video lessons live in person every day. He would sit here. He wouldn't even ask questions while I was talking to him. He would sit behind me and just watch my screen, watch what I did. And maybe at the end of the day, he would ask, why I did a certain thing. And I always say it all the time, like, if I could sit behind Nate for like a week, I feel like I could learn so many things that I never will, and that's why it's so beneficial to talk to traders, talk to people who are below you, on your level, and better than you, so you can kind of learn from everyone, because everyone's different, everyone has different advice. And we definitely built a community here in Michigan of like several traders that are all good at different things, all different. Like, you're going to hear from another one here who is a consistently profitable trader. He's a $100,000 trader. He makes a living. He loves fishing, loves hunting. And he doesn't need to throw a $100,000 loss in there every now and then because he's comfortable doing what he's doing. And Randy, you can tell by his drive that he wants to be the best. He wants to make the most money. And I don't know if he'll ever spend it, but he wants to make the most. And, we're all different people. Another thing I'm seeing a lot of you guys talk about is like, you're comparing yourself to him, and that's not really fair to either of you. Everyone's journey is different. Everyone, is going to do this in a different way. Everyone has different backgrounds. Everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. And it takes people a different amount of time to find their strengths and weaknesses. The big thing for Randy that probably sped up his learning is I was able to direct him in a way that he didn't go through all the mistakes I went through. He didn't have to learn which pattern he was good at. He just learned the patterns I was trading. It was easy. And that's why the patterns I'm teaching to you guys, because they're very simple patterns. They're not hard to pick up. And once you pick them up, it's very easy to grow your account because, there's not very much risk. You're not day trading all day long. And, there's tons of upside. And now you see where he's at. He understands price action. He understands support and resistance. He can trade any pattern now. He didn't have to learn that from me. He learned it from watching the market and seeing how these things trade. And that's where you guys will get to once you, master one thing and move on. Like, when you started, did you only trade OTC breakouts?
Yeah.
Because we talk all the time about, like, figure out one pattern, stick to it until you're making money, and then branch out. Is that kind of what you did?
This was the only pattern that I traded in the beginning. And that's why now I think I trade it so similar, or so closely to how you do. Is like, I mean, you saw we bought this the same day, and we weren't even talking to each other.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the same reason why, like, me and Jack built a lot of our systems together when we lived in Michigan. He will DM me on Discord the second I buy a stock.
Oh yeah.
And he'll be like, how much did you just buy? He knows exactly what I do, where I buy, and why I'm buying. Like, that's the big thing. He understands why I'm doing everything, and you understand why, and you're just able to be directed towards the why right away. And most beginners, they have to weed through a lot of BS to find out the truth of what they're doing and why they're doing it. And I think, that's the benefit of having people around you that, I mean, we had Jack. When you learned, you had Jack in the same room. We had Dombrowski. Jordan was there, who just recently passed 100K. And we built a community where we met up like once a week, right? We used to do those Sunday night meetings at my apartment, and we would talk. We'd have the projector on or whatever, and we'd go through charts. I remember, like, POTN was a big one. And we were preparing for stuff beforehand. And that, I think, helps you. So it's better than a DVD or a video lesson because you're, like, getting the experience. You're sucking through osmosis, like, the experience from me.